Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Angela Czajkowski. I am the Director of Supply Chain at Samuel Shapiro and Company. I'm not really, my PowerPoint slides won't be a whole big area of focus for you, but it's just a bit to kind of keep me going, because when I get to talking about this business and our industry and what I do, I can go on for quite a while. So it's for me to stay focused than anything else. First, a little about me. So I have a bachelor's in international business, and way back when I got my bachelor's, supply chain wasn't even a program that you could really focus on. It was kind of a newer area. So I have a bachelor's in international business. I have a master's in supply chain management. I was a member of the first Towson University cohort. I think there were 3 of us that finished that program by the end of the whole thing. I've spent 15 years with the same company in roles of increasing responsibility. And I think that for me, when you find a home, when anyone finds a home where you can really thrive, that it's a testament to the company and the corporate culture that they create there. So I'm very fortunate to have been in a role or in a company where I could grow and learn and use skills and still kind of stay at what I call my home. I'm a member of the NCBFAA's NVOCC subcommittee. So the NCBFAA is an industry organization it's the National Customs Brokers and Forwarders Association. You'll hear a lot of talk about the number of organizations where you can participate within this industry, and particularly within my segment of the industry. And I'll talk about that here in a bit. So I've chosen to join and participate with the NVOCC subcommittee. I also love being active with colleges, universities, and industry groups because, and we'll talk more about networking in a bit, I cannot stress to you the importance of that sort of connected community that I think exists within particularly the logistics segment of supply chain. So I work on the Journal of Commerce's diversity committee right now. I've been a Towson University case competition judge. That's one of my proudest, because I love coming back to the university and seeing the talent that Towson is helping to foster and grow and develop. So it's really exciting when I get asked to do one of those. I've been a guest speaker for various programs, and I just last semester completed some case study work with Stella Tomasi in the business process management course. They actually worked with Shapiro on some BPM initiatives, and it was really exciting. And for me now, after 15 years, or almost 15 years, one of my big current objectives focuses on mentorship. And I think that we all reach a point in our careers where it's important to share what we've learned with others, and to really, I don't know, to help, I'm going to say the next generation, but I mean to help all of us continue to grow. And so I think that experience sharing is so important. And I'm taking every opportunity that I can really to kind of, both through peer mentorship and other mentorship programs, just try to, to experience share and to help others enjoy this industry as much as I have. So a bit about my company, because it can be kind of confusing. I work for a 105-year-old freight forwarder, NVOCC, and customs house broker. What is that? I have to break it down because I often joke that few people realize we exist. If you're not within the industry, I think a lot of times people don't know that we're here. Getting something into the country is not as simple as, we go to the store and we buy it, or what we manufacture here and just getting it to foreign markets. It doesn't happen automatically. So much of what we do at my company is we move things and we facilitate the legal stuff, the regulatory side. So in order to do any of that, or to get something in or out of the country, someone's got to move it and someone's got to do the regulatory side, the legal stuff, the customs stuff, the USDA and FDA. So all of that happens courtesy of a freight forwarder, an NVOCC, and a customs house broker in my case. You also have the booking side, and I do break this out because I think it's so important for people to realize that even the biggest importers and exporters often have somebody else doing bookings for them. And so I think that when we talk about the example that I used the other day, actually, I was asked what I do. And I said, I work for a freight forwarder and customs house broker and an NVOCC. They of course said, well, what does that mean? What is that? And I often reach for something very close to me, just whatever it is. And I pick it up and turn it over and I say, oh, and we can talk about the made in. So the item that I picked up the other day, I flipped it over and I read the name, and it happened to have been made in China, but the name of the company actually was one of my customers, and I didn't realize it. So I did pick it up and say, oh, I actually did help to import this, and here's how. So when you consider the proximity to this industry, It's all around us as consumers every day. I love that connection to the world, to the market, to the economy. It's really fantastic. And we have big importers. You know, we all go to big retailers. We drive past them. We understand the big names, but there are so many smaller importers and exporters, small manufacturers, small sellers, e-commerce. Courtesy of the evolution of e-commerce selling, we've got e-commerce folks who don't actually have any brick and mortar of their own. They don't have a warehouse. They aren't handling their own distribution, but they are importing and selling and facilitating trade and participating in the economy in a really remarkable way. And so that for me is what I do at a freight forwarder and customs house broker. My company happens to be third generation family owned, and we have won the title of top woman owned business in Baltimore as named by the Baltimore Business Journal. I think this might be our third year. If I'm not mistaken, it could be our fourth, but I know it's at least, I think it was our third year for at least 3 years in a row, the top woman owned business. Our owner is the granddaughter of our founder. And she's very deeply devoted to our business and to our company, and she participates and she has an open door and she knows every single person's name. And to me, that's such a testament to the culture that she's creating. And that's part of why I call it home and not just my work. Our corporate values are heavily focused around regulatory compliance, technology, and high service. We are not trying to be the biggest. We're not trying to be a name that we're recognized globally as. We want to be recognized as highly compliant, with a strong tech focus and the best service you could ask for. And I think that for us to have that sort of identity awareness, and for me as an employee within the company to know who we are and that we are confident in our identity, and that as we move forward, we make decisions based on who we are and who we want to be. So we're not trying to kind of go outside of that to a point where we aren't being true to our value proposition. And that allows us to really stay, as I said, to stay focused, but it allows us to be strategic and to keep our energy in directions that really serve that brand promise. So a bit about my job. So my title is Director of Supply Chain. And in a traditional sense, a Director of Supply Chain would normally own the functions of a company's supply chain. So that would include purchasing, procurement, logistics, supply and demand planning, distribution, inventory management. Really hope I'm not forgetting one, but those are the basics of a supply chain. Those are the big column headers of a supply chain. And a director of supply chain would traditionally, at an importer or an exporter or retailer, would oversee all of those functions. And we oftentimes find that the lines get very blurry within a supply chain. So some companies might break the pieces up one way, and another has a different structure. So I think it's really important to remember that depending on the size, the scope, the type of firm that you're with, purchasing can also own certain functions, where in some companies we see that logistics also owns distribution and inventory management. You know, so it really is about understanding the needs of that supply chain and building accordingly. For me, in truth, I am a director of global logistics, but within my teams, I also manage the team and I own the product and product development for our supply chain management systems. So my focus is heavily on technology in that regard. That supply chain management system supports supports customers that come to us for more than just logistics. So when it comes to moving cargo, that's a fun challenge in and of itself. But you also have the component of understanding cargo readiness from the time a purchase order is placed overseas to when that cargo actually becomes ready, and understanding the milestones of production along the way and how that affects logistics downstream. The systems that surround that are actually a tool that give importers and exporters the visibility they need to then manage their supply chain accordingly. So that's my connection to supply chain management and why my title reflects as such. But within that, I would say that I manage my day-to-day. I do manage teams of global logistics analysts. I have a commercial team, a key accounts team, which supports those supply chain management functions, a growing domestic logistics team, and then export logistics. So fundamentally, those are the logistics teams that report into me. At the director level, I'm sometimes more removed from the tactical day-to-day, but I can say that the tactical day-to-day is, it's fascinating and it's hard and it's adrenaline charging in some cases. And there is so much that happens within the logistics arena. that when we consider the roles and responsibilities and the due diligence that's needed to help facilitate an importer or exporter's logistics functions, you really do have to be thinking in a multifaceted way to truly support a customer supply chain well. I spend a lot of my time while my management team is focusing on resource management and overall customer service and customer success and tactical projects. I am more focused on the interconnectedness of those groups to the overall, so the overall logistics market, our service offerings within that market, the competitive landscape and our service offerings within that market, our systems, our tools, our capabilities, and our abilities to meet the objectives as a service provider, because that's what we are. We are, I should have spelled this out earlier, an NVOCC is a non-vessel operating common carrier, which means we don't actually own a boat or a plane or a train or a truck. We are a third-party service provider, and we contract space with all of the asset owners. And so for us, it's managing space allocation. It's managing the space that we have with the demand that we receive from our customer base. So that's really my my focus and what I do. Why did I get a master's in supply chain? I'm in logistics, which is, as we said, this one branch. And at a certain point in my career, I found myself offering strategic logistics solutions to vice presidents of supply chain, to directors of supply chain, to chief supply chain officers. And I recognized that the problems we were solving with them, and it's a very collaborative process, but those problems were deeply connected to their overall supply chain. And I found that my understanding of those challenges was cursory at best, because I was focused on my own core competency, which was logistics. So whereas I can move cargo and I can tell you where it is and I can help you track your milestone processes, to understand why a manufacturing milestone mattered in the grand scope of logistics, to understand why the merchandising team, why the buyers might be all over the VP of logistics about something that was happening from within the freight forwarding side, I needed I knew that I needed a closer understanding of, if my customers couldn't get the right product to the right place at the right time and at the right cost, then my strategic solutions weren't valuable. So I wanted to understand the priorities of that procurement manager, of the director of distribution, of the VP of merchandising. And so the master's program allowed me academic insight into really basic concepts that I was encountering. And then it allowed me to ask more informed questions. So when I was consulting on issues, I had a fundamental understanding of what those other parties were experiencing, and I could bring better solutions because of that. What's the best part of what I do? I have never had the same day twice in nearly 15 years. It's really hard to get bored, and I'm not to say that boredom is the enemy, but it's really hard to not feel challenged and invigorated by what you do when literally every day brings something new, a new challenge, a new way of looking at a problem, a new opportunity, a new product. Our industry, so the logistics industry, has been disrupted. That's the really great buzzword that we're using, and I say it in a really positive way. So disrupted is not a bad thing, because sometimes industries need to be disrupted. And we are in one where disruption is a positive. It's driving us to think about things in a new way and with new tools in mind. So to work in a business where you never have the same day twice, where some days are hard and some days you're really exhausted looking for solutions to problems that you have no idea how to fix. And to give you maybe a more tactical example, right now we have customers who are having cargo surges because we had these tariffs that were applied and there were certain exclusions to those tariffs. And if you got an exclusion, that meant that you didn't have to pay these higher tariffs, but now those exclusions are expiring. So you have a deadline, and you have a deadline during a time when cargo surges worldwide, but especially let's say out of China into the US, we can't get on vessels for a month. And so for us to know that a customer might be up against a deadline but can't get on a vessel, and we've got to solve that problem, because 25% duty is a big deal on a purchase order you've already sold. You can't go back and ask your customer for more because you're not going to get it in before that duty skyrockets. solving challenges like that, I mean, they don't necessarily happen every day, but they seem to happen more frequently than not anymore. There's always a challenge to solve. And I think that for those of us who approach jobs like mine and like Lorraine's, when we approach jobs like ours and look at them as a puzzle, and that we're participating in a supply chain, and that is, we're helping supply chain leaders solve puzzles to be successful. That's so, it's fulfilling and it's fun, and it makes us, gosh, I feel really passionately about this because it makes me look under rocks that I would never have thought to. It makes me consider things. I just helped a customer who they own their own warehouses, but they have so much cargo coming in because demand has skyrocketed that their warehouses couldn't even accommodate it. So I created a third-party warehouse solution for them to try to help them get cargo in and onto store shelves faster. Because the cargo velocity, when you have a bottleneck created, it's just figuring out velocity is such a challenge. So I would just say that in the global market, we used to have a lot of consistency and maybe there was some predictability. And in my career, I haven't seen a whole lot of that. So I challenge that it was ever true. But I will say this, that if you're someone who likes puzzles and challenges and figuring it out, and if sometimes you can deal with a bit of tedious work to get through to the next challenge, then I think that for me, that's really the key to what I do and why I've been here for as long as I have. So what's next for you? What would be my advice? Networking in my business has changed over the years, but one thing remains the same. We are a very small industry. Everyone knows everyone from somewhere else. The number of times I hear from people, oh, I worked with so-and-so at blank blank. I worked with them at this. They worked with me when I was with the steamship line and they were with the forwarder, but now I'm with the trucker and they're with the importer. We are a small industry because the fundamental skills that we're all gaining are really transferable in a lot of ways. And you find different areas of the logistics field that you're passionate about. So you might pivot, gain some skills and pivot those skills into a different segment. But it's a very small industry. And from that comes the ability to call and say, do you remember when we encountered this problem? How did we handle that? What did you do? What advice would you give to me? Because we're also a very supportive one. It's not hard to get a contact name or a referral. It's not hard to find somebody who's willing to help you and give you solutions. I have found my entire career, some of the best education I've been given is by vendors who were willing to answer really annoying and repetitive questions that I asked them, but they were willing to kind of educate me because in the end, it benefited us all. The next thing that I would stress to you is that these connections, and both in networking and mentorship, I encourage you to make sure that they are meaningful connections and not superficial ones. I jokingly say that a connect on a networking platform is not as meaningful as a true connection that you can make with people. I encourage you to find real opportunities where you can meet people within the industry. Those opportunities are out there. Even during times of COVID, Zoom is still a very possible avenue. But meet people within our industry, ask questions. I encourage you to find a mentor or two. Just ask. That's what I did for my very first mentor. And I'll say honestly, I don't know that I asked him as much as I just asked a lot of annoying questions until it became an unofficial mentorship. But ask questions and ask someone, hey, can I have 25 minutes of your time? And I say that both of people who are more experienced than you and of your peers. I had encountered a person through a speaking engagement and I said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can we have 20 minutes? I'd love to just pick your brain. And she's a peer, but that 20-minute coffee, I got to ask a lot of questions and I got to understand her motivations and what was driving her and how she got to where she was. And I think that those meaningful kind of mentorship connections are incredibly valuable, especially as you're formulating what it is that you want to achieve. And then lastly, I say reading. And that's kind of a lame final bullet, I'm sorry, but truly there is so much information out there. Read, consume, because especially in our business, things are changing. So there are folks who have access to information that maybe I don't necessarily have. And there are so many publications that I try to keep reading everything because the information is out there for me and it's my job to have it. And so in some cases you've got the firsthand story, and in some cases you're getting it secondhand through a publication, article, a journal, whatever it is. But that information is so helpful for us as we are trying to make informed decisions in a business that is being disrupted and is really changing. And it's exciting to participate. And I'm just I feel so thrilled to have had the journey that I've had so far. And so with that, I ask, does anybody have any questions